All right, Jesse on Fire. Welcome back. So I just finished a 31-minute video about the event last night, and I want to talk about the Aljamain Sterling and Sean O'Malley matchup. So I couldn't fit it in that video. Once you hit 31 minutes, it's like, all right, dude, like you can't expect people to watch it. This is a really important video to do, to break down that fight. Now, obviously, there are going to be a lot of breakdown videos as it gets closer, but we may as well talk about it right now because this is a matchup that's very easy to handicap, right? Very easy to handicap. And I'll also talk about how I think that O'Malley versus Cejudo would go as well, because while it's fresh in the mind, I just watched these two guys fight, and I'm very, very familiar with all three of these fighters, so I can make a pretty educated breakdown here. I got Bilal over Burns right last night, and I definitely got Cejudo over Sterling wrong. That I was you know what, I forgot about that in the previous video, and I'll just say super quick that like I was caught off guard by how good Aljamain's grappling is against an elite guy like Henry Cejudo, and it's important to note that because it plays into this breakdown that's coming up. So we'll talk about all that. We'll talk about the the build up to that fight, but there's a bunch of stuff to talk about around this. So if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell so you know when I upload. Join the hottest MMA commentary channel in the world, son. I appreciate you guys doing that. I would do it for you if I was on your channel. And that's what it costs to watch the content. It's free. All you have to do is just click a button. And I want to thank the sponsor of this video, Kratom. Don't worry about, if you don't know what Kratom is, don't worry about it. But if you are a Kratom user, $60 kilograms on the Kratom website. Fantastic source for Kratom. You will love it. I ate some this morning. That's why I'm firing on all cylinders, even though I was up very late last night. So Kratom, $60 kilograms. Give them a look. It gets here in 2 days every time. It's as reliable as Amazon. 2 days. It'll be at your door. Anyway, so that's what it is, and it's way cheaper, and it's just as good. So let's run it. So let's talk about this matchup in general. So first of all, I thought it was interesting that everyone seems to have agreed that O'Malley was offered this fight first. I didn't know that. And it's notable because Dana had said, how about Aljamain versus Cejudo? I think right after wait, I'm sorry. So he said Aljamain versus Cejudo. I don't know if I said O'Malley. Aljamain versus Cejudo right after the O'Malley and Yan fight, to where it was like, okay, so O'Malley's not in the conversation for a title shot immediately, right? Like that's how they made it seem. And apparently behind the scenes, they actually offered this fight to O'Malley at some point. I don't know if it was, I don't know exactly when it was, but everybody agrees on that. So O'Malley turned this fight down initially. Now, there are multiple reasons that could have been, right? A lot of different reasons. Number one, he might have just not wanted to camp yet. He had just had his biggest win of his career, and he might have wanted to chill a little bit and game and swing and do content and whatever else he does. You know, like he looks like he lives a pretty fun life. And then it's also possible that he wanted to let Cejudo fight Aljamain because maybe he likes the Cejudo matchup better, right? Or maybe he just thinks it would be a huge, huge fight, him and Cejudo, and so he wanted to wait and then try to, maximize earnings. I don't know if he has a piece of the pay-per-view when he's a challenger, but he's obviously the next guy, right? The UFC has a lot riding on O'Malley, dude. If he ends up winning the title, that's a big game changer for the UFC. That's the thing that's so crazy about this sport is in a regular business, it's like you come up with some kind of innovation to your product, and then you do a good job communicating that to the public, and then that leads to tremendous increase in your bottom line. Or you acquire a company that has some kind of product or service that aligns well with your core offering, and then your revenue goes way up. In the fight business, it is relatively straightforward. Outside of new marketing vehicles, whether that's a new show, a new way of hitting new markets on some, app or something. When it comes down to how many people are going to buy pay-per-views, which is the core driver of revenue, as I understand it in the UFC's business, it comes down to how many stars do we have active and how many of them are the champion in the UFC, right? Because if you can get a superstar into the role of champion, that has a tremendous impact on your bottom line. And Sean O'Malley has been groomed from the jump for him to be that guy if they could. And this is what's very notable about that. Okay, so what that means is that Sean O'Malley's opponents have been very carefully curated, very carefully. The thing about when you give him a title shot, no more. That's out the window. When it's time for him to get a title shot, there's no curation. You're fighting the champion. It does not matter who it is. You're fighting the champion, right? Now, Dana might have liked the Cejudo versus O'Malley fight better than he likes the O'Malley and Sterling fight. I like O'Malley versus Cejudo way better than I like the Sterling O'Malley fight. That is a very, very problematic fight for O'Malley. Very problematic for O'Malley. Now, it doesn't mean he can't win, but that's what this video is going to be about, you know. Again, I don't do videos about fight breakdowns very often, but if you're actually listening when I do them, I'm not pulling things out of the air. Like, I know what I'm looking at. I know what I'm looking at. And this fight is very simple to handicap. Very simple. Now, being able to handicap it doesn't mean you're going to, you could break down what the factors are to consider, and then you could say, I'm leaning in this direction, and you could, tell people how confident you are. But I am heavily leaning in the direction of Sterling, and I'm a massive O'Malley fan. No one, except for O'Malley's family and team, want O'Malley to win that fight more than I do, okay? And that's nothing against Sterling. It's just, I am an MMA commentator who does YouTube videos. O'Malley, like to the UFC, O'Malley gets in there, they make way more money. To me, O'Malley gets in there and he's a champion, and I've got endless content that I can do. That guy will drive headlines all day long. The problem with Sterling, which is it's one of those things I can't really understand. He's like a good looking guy. He pisses people off. Like he should be someone that eyes go on. It's just like this weird phenomenon that I can't really understand, where certain people have that like thing where they're a star. Like they're just a star. You look at him, you're like, dude, that guy's a star. And I can't really quantify it. Conor, star, you guys understand. And like Aljamain is an incredible athlete, and he has all the makings that like he should be a star, and he's not. It just is what it is, dude. So anyway, when it comes to the fight itself, this is what it looks like to me. Okay. So O'Malley likes to sit back and pick his shots, and he's a surgeon, right? O'Malley's a surgeon, and he's so good on his feet, and he's got a million creative ways to hit you, right? He can throw spins. He's got incredible straight punches. He's great with leg kicks. His stand-up is very well-rounded. Very well, and he has knockout power. He can hurt anyone. He can knock anyone out. Anyone. But what Aljamain does so well is he is very, very challenging to time, right? If you're a person who likes to, download the data, how many times you guys hear download the data? If you don't know what that means, okay, like if you hear them say like, oh, he's downloading the data, and you don't really know what that means, it means that they are sitting there and they are watching for patterns, okay? So when he throws this is what he does. When he throws this is what he does. Like if a regular Joe, even like a better than average stand-up fighter is not approaching striking the way that these elite guys are. You're just not. It's the same as jiu-jitsu, where like, a guy who's good is like, oh, this guy left this limb out. I hooked his arm. Now that I've got his arm, I'm going to move over and I'm either going to Kimura him or armbar him. And where like an elite black belt is thinking 9 steps ahead. They're literally like, all right, I'm going to make him think this. He's going to move this way. I'm going to grab his ankle. Then I'm going to move around to his back. Like, it's like, and then he'll do this, and then I'll do this, and then he'll do this, and then I'll do this. It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. And in stand up, it's like they're sitting there and they watch, and they're like, okay, when he throws his jab, if he's going to follow it up with a kick, then he moves, his left knee out this way. When he throws this and this, he tends to throw this behind it. When he does this and he feints this way, that means he's setting up this way. They're downloading all this data and they're figuring out the pattern so that later they're like, oh, okay, so he threw the left. I know this is coming, bap, and they light him up. It's like, so they're downloading data. Aljamain has no data to download. Okay? He has no data to download. He doesn't do patterns. Like he doesn't. That's why he's so hard to deal with on the feet. Same as Nate Diaz. There's no pattern to Nate Diaz. Same with Dominic Cruz. There's no pattern to Dominic Cruz. There's no data to download. You're not going to figure out a pattern because there isn't one. And they do that intentionally. That is an intentional strategy that they build their game around, right? Being unpredictable. So like guys like Peter Yan have a hard time dealing with them because what Peter Yan is exceptional at is downloading data and then being explosive and hitting the opportunity. But the opportunity is not just coming from like, it's not just random. They figured you out. They figured out what you do. And then they counter and light you up. And O'Malley is exceptional at that. But with Aljamain, there's no data to download. There's just not, you know? So, I mean, at least at the level that I can observe, I couldn't figure out much of a pattern for him. You know, I don't want like, you know, I mean, listen, dude, obviously, Israel Adesanya might have found some patterns, but as far as me looking at it, I'm like, dude, he's herky jerk. There's like, he moves this way one time, he moves this way one time, you know, one time he follows up this way. He's just out there free flowing all the time. So, and a lot of that has to do with how they train. It's like, you know, a lot of guys, throw that sequence, you know, they train a sequence. And so it's like 1, 2, 5, you know what I mean? It's like it's a sequence. And so they drill that into their muscle memory and they get exceptional at a specific sequence. And then they're choosing when to throw said sequence. And some guys are free flowing and that's just not how they do it. So I think that presents challenges for O'Malley on the feet, right? Now, if that fight is a pure striking match in a 5-round fight, all day O'Malley, of course. I'm not saying that Aljamain is going to beat O'Malley in a stand-up fight. But the thing is, he only needs to beat him or be hard enough to deal with to get his arms around him. Because my goodness, dude, Aljamain is I haven't sworn yet in this one, so I'm not going to, but fill in the most emphasized F word that I am capable of saying, nightmare for O'Malley on the ground. Nightmare. Absolute sheer nightmare. Aljamain is a smashing machine, okay? Like, I talked about this in the other video, right? But I talked about it in like the 28th minute, 29th minute. So I'm going to talk about it again here. People are built with the body type that they have, okay? You can't change it. That's the one thing you can't train. You can't train it, you know, to change your core body type. I'm not saying you can't get bigger or smaller, put on more muscle, you know, take off less muscle, change your body fat percentage. But the structure that you have is the structure that you have. There's nothing you can do about it. And there are generally 3 body types when it comes to fighting. Okay, 3, and anyone who trains can testify to this. And this is the impact on the martial art is very evident in both grappling and striking. You have 1, tall, lanky guys, long limbs. Okay, so in grappling, these are the guys who are vicious off their back. You know, if they're good guys, they're vicious off their back. They're triangling guys from everywhere. You know. Usually they have a really vicious game off their, you know, if they're good, they're really vicious off their back. They spin really well and they do all these things, you know, they delihiva, they do all these like crazy things that are really challenging for the other body type, which is these tight little stocky guys like me. Okay. Like I watch the guys that are vicious off their back, you know, like the guys with the long limbs that spin and do all this. I call it fancy jiu-jitsu. And I say that to guys all the time. I'm like, dude, you're vicious. You're vicious at that fancy jiu-jitsu. And I'm jealous. Because it looks so fun, dude. And, you know, at some point, maybe I'll be good enough to do fancy jiu-jitsu also. You know, off my back, I'll be some super fancy jiu-jitsu guy. But it comes way less natural than for me to smash your fucking brains in. You know, just be on top of you and just make myself heavy and just make myself impossible to deal with if we're on a similar skill level. Just smash you into the fucking ground. You know, top pressure all day. And guys like me are very hard to choke, you know, slink down, you're on my back, just make yourself, you know, for the white belts out there here. And you just slink your body down, pull one of the hooks off and then put your back on the floor, block their legs so they can't immediately mount you. And that's what it is. And then you have different transitions depending on what their position is. That's it. Back escapes are simple for a guy like me because I'm so hard to choke. Okay? Slouch, pull a hook, back on the floor. So And for guys who are lanky, it's way harder for them because they've got these big limbs. You know, you can hook their arms. You know, they've got this huge neck. They can't make their neck disappear, so you can get your arm under and you could choke them. Okay, so there are like advantages to both body types, right? And then there is the third body type, which is kind of right in the middle of those, right? Like just right in the middle, which is the not super long limbs and also not super stocky. They're like kind of right in the middle. They don't get either huge advantage from either of the other two body types. They're literally right in the middle, right? So the reason why this is relevant is because I can explain why both Aljamain and Sean O'Malley are elite, explaining it from the position of this body type thing, okay? So O'Malley is one of these long, lanky guys, and when it comes to striking, on the striking side, when it comes to the body type thing, how that works is the smaller guys are obviously at a massive disadvantage when it comes to reach, obviously, right? But the small guys tend to be way more explosive, right? Like they can't just like keep you at distance with like these long guys can just keep you at distance with their jab and just move away, and they can always be at a distance where they can hit you and you can't hit them, right? But the explosive guys, if they get in tight, they can just, whap and just rip power shots into your body, rip them to your head exactly the same, tight, compact, bam. And you can't really do that as well if you're a big, long, lanky guy. O'Malley, and also that comes, generally speaking, this is not always the case, but generally speaking, the tighter, compact guys have more quick twitch. Like they move faster, they're more explosive. Michael Chandler, you understand what I'm saying. Me. And the lanky guys tend to have that huge advantage on distance management, etc., and they're not as explosive. Like it's very rare for a really long guy who's great at managing distance to be super explosive and be able to really snap things really fast. And O'Malley is both long and lanky, and he's super explosive. So that's why he's so elite. I mean, in addition to all of his skills, but like that's one of the huge advantages that he has over guys is he has all the advantages of being long and lanky, and he's also super explosive and powerful. So that's why he's elite. Aljamain, okay? Aljamain is this freak of nature that makes no sense because you look at his body and he's literally the only guy in the UFC that I can really think of who's built the way that he is. Kamaru Usman's kind of this way too, but not as much as Aljamain, where he literally fits into like almost elite status in both categories. If you really look at his body, like he is built to smash your fucking brains in on top. Like if he's like a top guy, he will smash you. He's strong as fuck. He'll rip his way onto your back. He'll grab a hold of you and there's nothing. Like he's strong and he's a smasher. And at the same time, his limbs are super long. Like he is the most perfectly built structurally fighter I've ever seen. When I like for MMA, when I really looked at, I was like, wow, dude, I've never really put that together before until last night, where he's like, he has tremendous physical advantages as a fighter, tremendous, because he has good reach, and not just against Cejudo. Like he's got good reach, but he's also built to absolutely smash, and so that's why he's elite. One of the reasons that he's elite. So when you play this thing out, it's like, all right, so how is this fight going to go? Like the guys that are long and lanky, like I was talking about the back attacks, etc., have by far the roughest time dealing with someone on their back. It's just a matter of their body type. There's no, like if someone's on your back and you are this long, lanky guy, and especially if it's a little like compact guy, I mean, there are disadvantages to being on someone's back if you're compact because your legs aren't as long, but nonetheless, like Aljamain doesn't have that weakness. Aljamain has long limbs and he's a smasher. So when he gets on his back, he'll throw a body triangle on him, and then he's going to get to work from there. Okay, if you've never had a body triangle on someone or around you, it is impossible. Well, I won't say impossible to escape because Frank Mir and Schaub, who are both, I mean, Mir is like a world champion black belt, and Schaub's a black belt. They both told me, they're like, you can't escape that black belt. They were trying to explain it when we were doing the Fight Companion, but I mean, yeah, so I'm not gonna say it's impossible to escape, but generally speaking, when you see guys get a body triangle on guys, they don't get out of it. And if you've ever locked one on someone, it's like this thing is cinched so tight. You can just hold them there and crush their abdomen while you work for a choke. And if you're telling me that like if Aljamain gets on O'Malley's back, that O'Malley's going to be able to escape, I don't agree. And he's also built to be choked. He's built to get dominated once he's in that position. Now, I would imagine O'Malley's guard is super nasty. I bet you he has ridiculous fancy jiu-jitsu. I bet you, like, everybody's always said that his jiu-jitsu is incredibly underrated. But just from a physical perspective, he is at an enormous disadvantage with Aljamain on the ground. Enormous. And not like I'm saying, like, not even necessarily from a skill level. Like, a lot of times, it's like styles make fights in jiu-jitsu too, dude. I mean, you know, you get to a Gordon Ryan level, he can mix up styles. You get to a Victor Hugo level, you can mix up styles. Steve level, you can mix up styles. But like, you know, at my school, myself, another dude. I mean, one guy's, so like we're doing a rotation. All of us are kind of near the same level. It's like this guy gives this dude a really hard time. This guy that he just gave a hard time destroys me, and then I destroy the guy that gave him a hard time. Every time. Like, it's not like a one-off. Every time we roll, this dude smashes me. Every time I roll with this dude, I smash him. And then every time those two roll, the guy I smash smashes the guy who smashed me. It's like styles make fights. And O'Malley is, I honestly, I think O'Malley, I think it's highly possible that Aljamain gets O'Malley out of there in one round. Seriously. And I am obviously not rooting for that outcome. I want O'Malley to win more than anybody. But man, Aljo he's a nightmare for O'Malley. That is a sheer nightmare matchup. It's the worst matchup for O'Malley in the entire division by a mile. There's no one who poses a bigger threat to O'Malley than him. Straight up. Not Merab, you know. Merab poses kind of like a different problem, but like O'Malley, I think, would be able to keep distance and just piece him up. He doesn't have the power that Aljamain has, dude. Like, anyway, so that's my breakdown. I think Aljamain is going to grapple O'Malley and submit him. And I think it's not, I don't see it being very challenging for him. I think he's going to fold him up. And O'Malley's an incredible fighter. I'm not even saying that Aljamain's a better fighter than O'Malley. I'm saying stylistically, you couldn't make a better matchup for Aljo or a worse matchup for O'Malley. So that is what I've got. Subscribe to the channel, ring the bell. I got Bilal right. I got Cejudo wrong. And why did I get Cejudo wrong? Because I did not realize how, I mean, dude, Aljamain won grappling exchanges with an Olympic gold medalist wrestler. I mean, he's legit, dude. Like when Henry, so think about this, like when Henry Cejudo did the splits in there, Aljamain still double-legged him. Why is that? It's because he has the build to be a smasher and he has super long arms that he's still able to get around and take him down. That's what I'm saying, dude. He is built for all aspects. So that's what I've got. Subscribe to the channel, ring the bell. Peace.